An old man sits by an open window in the city of Ephesus. The air smells heavily of salt from the Aegean Sea, as a lovely, albeit dense, piece of ancient poetry. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. God is present in the camp, but he is heavily insulated from the crowd. Now, hold that terrifying, holy architecture in your mind. When our English Bibles translate John 1:14, they say, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us." The word "dwelt" sounds polite. It sounds like moving into a nice house on a quiet street. But the English translation completely misses the violent theological collision of the Greek verb. The word John actually writes on the papyrus is eskenosin. It does not just mean to live or reside. It literally means to pitch a tent, to tabernacle. John is looking backward to the burning sand of Sinai, and he is telling a Hebrew audience that the terrifying pillar of fire has relocated. The glory of God is not an abstract concept hidden behind a heavy woven curtain. It is a presence that pitches its tent in the dirt of human existence. He pitched his tent in the obscure, dusty village of Nazareth. He pitched his tent on the wooden planks of fishing boats in the Sea of Galilee. He pitched his tent in the middle of a weeping crowd at a friend's tomb. He pitched his tent at tables surrounded by political traitors and women with broken reputations. The divine did not remain in the clean, untouchable heavens, and the Word was God. We hear it read by candlelight on Christmas Eve. We see it printed on the first page of our Bibles, like the Greeks demanded. And the divine did not stay safely insulated behind layers of animal skins and blood sacrifices like the Hebrews remembered. God moved into the neighborhood. He put on the ultimate, fragile tent of human skin. But this physical reality, this scandalous wrapping of the infinite, cosmos-sustaining logos in a human body created a problem that the religious elite of the first century absolutely could not stomach. Because a tent made of skin is vulnerable. A tent made of skin gets tired. And eventually, a tent made of skin can be violently torn open. The Greek mind recoils at this. Flesh is a cage. Flesh is a sickness. Flesh rots. The word John uses is sarx. It is not a polite, spiritual term for a human silhouette. It is meat. It is the sweat dripping down a laborer's back. It is the grease on unwashed hair. It is the grit of wind-blown sand caught in the teeth. It is a stomach groaning from actual starvation. To the Greco-Roman world, the gods do not bleed. The gods do not get tired. The gods do not need to pause for a drink of water. By a well in Samaria, Jupiter throws lightning from an untouchable distance. Apollo drives the sun across a perfect, sterile sky. The Logos is pure, cold, mathematical perfection. But a God who blisters? A God who starves in a desert? We treat it as a theological prologue, a polite introduction we have to get through before the actual action of the miracles begins. A God whose muscles ache from walking up a mountain? That is not divinity. That is a cosmic embarrassment. Look at the absurdity John is asking his educated readers to accept. The Logos that holds the stars together has to learn how to walk. The voice that shattered the black void of Genesis has to learn how to speak Aramaic. The creator of the oceans asks a despised woman for a drink from a deep well. The immortal reason of the universe falls asleep on a hard wooden bench in the back of a fishing boat, exhausted by the crushing weight of human need. The eternal Dabar of God has to learn how to swing a carpenter's hammer. The religious elite of Jerusalem cannot accept this either. To them, holiness is separation. Holiness is staying far away from the bleeding, the sick, the dead, and the ritually unclean. If God is holy, God must be distant. God must be protected by rules and boundaries and heavily guarded temple walls. But this sarx reaches out and touches the rotting skin of a leper. This sarx lets a weeping prostitute wash his dirty feet with her hair. This sarx grabs the cold, lifeless hand of a dead girl. This completely shatters the religious hierarchy of the ancient world. We assume it is simply a lofty, spiritual way to say that Jesus has been around for a very long time. If the Logos became flesh, then the physical world is not a prison to be escaped. If the Word became sarx, then human limits are not inherently evil. The incarnation is not God wearing a temporary human costume. It is God permanently welding himself to human biology. He does not float above the dirt. He steps directly into the mud. He does not shout instructions from the clouds. He sits down in the dust. He is not a ghost. He has actual fingerprints. But this scandalous reality is not just a philosophical argument John is making from a desk in Ephesus. It is a memory. It is something John actually witnessed with his own eyes. Because John did not just hear. The abstract LOGOS speak in the heavens. He watched the physical LOGOS walk the blistering dirt roads of the Galilee. The sun beats down mercilessly on the rocky hills of Judea. The air shimmers with dry heat, and the fine white limestone dust coats everything clothing. Hair, the back of the throat. John is walking behind his rabbi. He is watching the sweat soak through the rough linen of the teacher's tunic. He is listening to the heavy, labored breathing of a man. But if you step into the first century, if you breathe the air of the ancient Mediterranean world where Greek philosophy violently crashes, who has been walking uphill for hours, he is watching the LOGOS get tired. When John writes this gospel decades later, he is not constructing a clever theological argument to impress the philosophers in Ephesus. He is recalling a deeply physical memory. He remembers sitting by a stone well in Samaria, while the sun hammered the earth at midday, watching the eternal creator of the oceans ask a woman with a broken history for a drink of cold water, because his human throat was actually parched. He remembers the boat violently rocking on the Sea of Galilee. He remembers the freezing, black water crashing over the wooden hull, the wind howling so loudly it drowned out the screaming of experienced sailors. And he remembers looking to the back of the boat to see the Word of God deeply asleep on a rough cushion. His physical body entirely exhausted by the sheer gravity of human existence. The incarnation is not a divine performance. It is a total surrender to the limits of the human condition. John remembers the smell of the upper room, the heavy scent of roasted lamb and bitter herbs. Watching the Word wrap a coarse linen towel around his waist. He remembers the sound of water splashing into a clay basin. He remembers watching the hands that flung the galaxies into the black void scrub the thick, foul-smelling street grime from the calloused feet of a fisherman. This God does not levitate above the brokenness of the world. Into Hebrew memory, that opening line is not poetry. It is an earthquake. It is a deliberate, calculated shock to the system. He walks directly into the center of the mess. And John remembers the end. He stood at the foot of a Roman cross. He heard the sickening, metallic echo of an iron hammer driving spikes through human bone. He watched the chest of the LOGOS heave, struggling violently for a single breath of air, while blood dripped into the dirt at Golgotha. He saw the Roman spear pierce the side. He saw the water and blood pour out onto the rocks. The death of the Word was not an illusion. It was the violent tearing of the tabernacle tent. John writes all of this down because he knows the danger of forgetting the flesh. But this profound physical reality is the exact thing we are most tempted to erase. 2,000 years later, we have built a version of faith that looks dangerously like the ancient Greek philosophers. John was trying to fight, because we still secretly want a God who stays in the clouds. Look at the modern religious landscape. We walk into climate-controlled auditoriums. We sit in padded chairs under perfectly calibrated lighting. We hold sleek glass screens in our hands to read the ancient texts. We listen to the sterile hum of the air conditioning. And we sing polished songs to a distant, sanitized God. We have become functional Greeks. We strongly prefer the LOGOS to the sarx, of every single person who would hear it read aloud. To understand what John is actually doing, you have to realize we want a savior who is a pure, spiritual concept, safely confined to Sunday morning sermons and theological podcasts. Because a concept is safe. A concept does not ask you to forgive the physical person who destroyed your reputation. A concept does not require you to sit in a quiet hospital room holding the cold hand of a dying friend. A concept does not ask you to open your actual wallet and give away your physical money. We like the idea of God. We like the emotional comfort of God. But we are terrified of the flesh. Flesh is messy. Flesh means dealing with the physical realities of a deeply broken world. It means looking into the bloodshot eyes of the addict on the street corner. It means sitting on a stained couch with a widow who has not washed her hair in a week because she is paralyzed by grief. It means loving people who are completely opposed to us. People whose voices grate on our nerves. People who smell like stale cigarettes and deep regret. Our modern spirituality is not an encounter with the living God. It is an escape plan. We treat faith as a mental exercise designed to get our souls out of this corrupted world. That he is writing to a culture deeply divided by how they view the heavens. He is speaking to Greek minds. Use complex theology as a heavy wooden shield to protect us from the agonizing pain of human existence. I want the pure, untainted math of the Greek philosophers, wrapped up in a Christian vocabulary. But John is standing in the doorway of the 1st century, permanently blocking our exit. He is holding up a rough papyrus scroll and pointing back to the dusty roads of Galilee. He is pointing to the sweat dripping onto the dirt, the spit rubbed into the eyes of a blind man, the saltwater tears falling at a gravesite, and the heavy blood pooling at the base of a wooden cross. If the Word truly became flesh, then the physical world matters profoundly. Your physical body matters. The physical pain of your neighbor is not a distraction from spiritual things. It is the exact arena where God operates. The God of John's Gospel is not a phantom hovering above the dirt. He is a participant bleeding into it. And this scandalous reality changes exactly what it means to follow him in your own life today. The black void of Genesis was shattered by a voice, and a physical cosmos was born from the dust, who believe the universe is held together by an abstract, untouchable, emotionless formula. And he is speaking to Hebrew minds. The mountain of Sinai shook with fire, and the holy presence pitched its tent among a nation of escaped slaves. The Greek mind searched the stars for a cold equation, and the eternal math put on a heartbeat. The creator of the oceans walked the blazing Judean hills and asked a broken woman for a drink from a deep well. The cosmic logic of the universe fell asleep in the back of a fishing boat and let the sheer exhaustion of humanity sink into his bones. The unapproachable divine perfection climbed onto a Roman cross and bled into the dirt he had once spoken into existence. The infinite Word became mortal flesh and permanently welded the sanctuary of heaven to the beautiful, agonizing mess of the human condition. Same logos, same flesh, one collision. But here is the part I keep coming back to. The tent, the eskenosin. When God decided to reveal the ultimate reality of the universe, he didn't write an equation in the sky. And he didn't stay safely insulated behind thick badger skins and burning frankincense. He put on the fragile, terrible fabric of human skin. He chose the dirt. He chose the blisters. He chose the exact physical vulnerability that we spend our entire lives desperately trying to escape, who know the universe was spoken into existence by a God whose voice splinters cedar trees and shakes the desert. If you are in a season where your physical reality feels too heavy to carry, if you are exhausted by a failing body, or a deeply broken mind, or the terrifying, uncontrollable mess of the people you love, if you find yourself secretly wishing for a phantom spirituality, for a God who would just lift you out of the dirt and take the physical pain away, look at the Word made flesh. He does not offer you an escape hatch from your humanity. He offers you his absolute presence inside of it. The dirt is not a distraction from your spiritual life. The dirt is the exact place he pitches his tent. And may the God who has never once been afraid of the dark, the dust, or the bleeding, walk with you through yours and meet you in the exact physical reality you are trying to outrun, mixed with the dry dust of Roman commerce rising from the cobblestone streets below. A single clay oil lamp flickers on a wooden table, and John takes the single most loaded, explosive concept in both of their languages, and he assigns it to a Jewish rabbi who got tired, who wept in public, and who bled to death on a Roman cross. The word is not a theological placeholder. It is a hostage situation. John is hijacking the greatest philosophical pursuit of the ancient world. But to feel the weight of this scandal, you have to understand the intellectual trap the first-century world was stuck in. You have to understand the untouchable ghost the Greeks had been chasing for 500 years, and why the very idea that this ghost had a heartbeat was absolutely revolting. The Greek mind was terrified of chaos. When they looked out at a world ravaged by sudden plagues, brutal, imperial zegas, and unpredictable winter storms on the Mediterranean, they desperately needed to believe that underneath the mess, there was a hidden structure. They needed an invisible geometry holding the fabric of reality together. They needed a name for this ultimate organizing principle. They called it the LOGOS. By the time the first century arrives, the concept of the LOGOS is the air the educated Greco-Roman world breathes. If you stood in the shadow of the massive, cold marble pillars of the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus, or listened to the Stoic philosophers, casting erratic, dancing shadows across a blank sheet of rough papyrus, he holds a cut reed pen. His hands are spotted with age, debating in the dusty markets of Athens. This was the ultimate pursuit. The Logos was the pinnacle of Greek thought, but you have to understand exactly what this word meant to them, because it is nothing like what we assume. The Greek Logos was an abstract, impersonal force. It was the divine reason that kept the sun rising exactly on schedule, and the saltwater tides pulling back from the shoreline. It was the ultimate, emotionless logic of the universe. It had no face. It had no name. And it absolutely possessed no feelings. To the Greek mind, flesh was a prison. The physical world the realm of sweat, rotting food, bleeding wounds, and dying bodies was considered inherently corrupt and gross. True spiritual perfection meant escaping the limits of physical matter to ascend to the pure, untainted, untouchable realm of the Logos. The highest form of the divine could never interact with the filth of human existence. The Logos is not a deity who pities you. It is a cosmic equation. It is the cold, beautiful, untouchable math that pins the constellations to the black sky. To suggest that the pure Logos would ever contaminate itself by wrapping itself in human skin or getting dirt under its fingernails, the knuckles thick and calloused from decades of pulling heavy fishing nets on a lake a lifetime away, he is the last one left, was not just theologically wrong to a Greek. It was repulsive. It was a philosophical absurdity. This is the intellectual trap of the ancient Mediterranean. You can have a perfect, divine reality, but it must remain a distant, emotionless formula. Or you can have a messy, chaotic world of flesh and blood, permanently severed from the divine. You cannot mix the two without destroying the perfection of heaven. John knows exactly how these philosophers think. He knows the trap. But while the Greeks are staring at the stars, searching for an elegant equation, a few hundred miles to the south, a completely different group of people is carrying a deeply physical, terrifying memory. They are not looking for an abstract principle. They are trying to survive the sound of a voice. Picture the black void of Genesis. There is no light. There is no shape. There is only a terrifying expanse of dark water. And then, a sound shatters the silence. God speaks. Light violently tears through the blackness. The waters separate. Dry ground breaks through the surface. Life erupts from the dirt. The cosmos is not built with hands. It is spoken into existence. Fast forward centuries. Every other man who walked the dirt roads of Judea with him is already in the ground, executed by the empire or torn apart by the mob. The sand burns beneath the calloused feet of 1 million escaped slaves. They stand at the base of Mount Sinai. The peak of the mountain is completely engulfed in fire. Thick, black smoke chokes the sky. The ground violently shakes under their sandals. A trumpet blasts, growing louder and louder, piercing their eardrums in the thin desert air. And again, God speaks. The sound is so heavy, so physically overwhelming. The people beg Moses to make it stop. They tell him they will die if they have to hear it again. Fast forward again. A prophet stands over a valley of dry, sun-bleached human skeletons. The wind howls through the empty rib cages. God commands him to speak. The prophet opens his mouth. The bones begin to rattle. Joints snap together with a cracking echo. Muscle and skin wrap around skulls. A dead army stands on its feet and draws breath. Same pattern, over and over. The Word of God is not an abstract theory. It is a wrecking ball. When a Greek philosopher spoke, he offered an equation. When the God of the Hebrews speaks, the saltwater walls stand up. Plagues fall from the sky. Empires crumble into dust. To the ancient Hebrew mind, the spoken word of God is an active, dynamic agent. It is sent out on missions. He has carried this memory in his chest for 60 years. Now, he dips the pen into the black ink. It accomplishes what it was sent to do. It never returns empty. It is an extension of God's own presence, crashing into the physical world. The word is not a distant thought. It is power made audible. John has this roaring fire of Sinai in his bones. He knows what the voice of Yahweh sounds like. He knows the weight of it. But he is sitting in Ephesus. He is surrounded by marble statues and Greek scholars who are terrified of a God who gets his hands dirty. He knows that if he just tells a Jewish history, the Greeks will laugh and turn away. And he knows that if he just echoes Greek philosophy, he abandons the God who splits the sea. So the old fisherman makes a move that is absolutely breathtaking in its audacity. He reaches into the Greek language and grabs their most sacred, untouchable concept. And he reaches into his Hebrew blood and grabs the terrifying, mountain-shaking voice. He is about to crash them together in a single, explosive sentence. He just needs the right word. John looks down at the rough papyrus on his wooden table, the black ink pooling at the tip of his cut reed pen. He is about to write an account of his closest friend. But he does not start with a manger. He is about to write a sentence that will completely short-circuit both the Greek and the Hebrew mind simultaneously. He writes the opening line of his gospel, which we read in English as, "In the beginning was the Word." The term he chooses, sitting right there in the original text, is the Greek logos. To the educated Greco-Roman reader unrolling this scroll, this is familiar, comfortable territory. They instantly recognize the logos as the divine reason. The cold, emotionless geometry holding the constellations in the black sky. They think John is agreeing with them. But John is not a Greek philosopher. He is a Jewish fisherman, and behind his Greek vocabulary is a heavily beating Hebrew heart. When John writes logos, his mind is actively translating a profoundly Jewish concept, the Hebrew word dabar. In the ancient Hebrew texts, dabar is often translated as word, but its ancient root carries a weight that the English language completely fails to capture. Dabar is not just a unit of speech or a passing thought. It means a matter, a physical action, an unstoppable driving force. When a Hebrew prophet spoke the dabar of Yahweh, it was believed to physically alter reality. In Psalm Kolme Kuminte Kolme, the text says, "By the word of the Lord the heavens were made." He does not start with shepherds shivering in a cold field, or a star in the eastern sky, or a careful genealogy of ancient kings. By the dabar. It is not a concept. It is the divine breath that violently shapes the cosmos. John is taking the Greek logos, the distant, untouchable math of the philosophers, and he is injecting it with the roaring, mountain-shattering dabar of the desert. He is telling the Greeks that their invisible, organizing principle is actually the God who splits the saltwater sea, and he is telling the Hebrews that they're terrifying, unapproachable. God is the very logic holding the Roman Empire together. If something about this collision of languages is stirring up a hunger to read the text differently, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the original context than you knew was possible. So John drops the ultimate theological bomb in verse 14. Having established that the Logos is the supreme divine reality, he writes the phrase that would have made a first-century Greek philosopher physically sick to his stomach. And the Word became flesh. The Logos became sarx. That is the Greek word for meat. Muscle, veins, skin that sweats and bleeds in tears. The ultimate reality is not an abstract equation. It is a person, but the detail that changes how you read. He is not writing a biography. He is writing a collision. Most people read the opening line of John's Gospel. This entire collision is what this person actually does next. John uses a highly specific verb to describe how the Logos entered the physical world, and it has nothing to do with simply taking a breath. It has to do with ancient architecture in the wilderness. A sea of black goat hair tents stretches across the burning white sand. In the center of this sprawling, chaotic camp of escaped slaves sits one structure, unlike the rest. It is wrapped in thick badger skins and draped in fine linen, woven with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. Inside the courtyard, the air is thick and heavy. It smells constantly of burning wood, crushed frankincense, and the sharp, metallic tang of sacrificed blood. This is the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. For 40 years, this structure is the most dangerous and sacred coordinates on the planet. It is where the unapproachable, terrifying presence of Yahweh hovers in a pillar of cloud by day and a column of roaring fire by night. To step into the innermost room without the exact, rigorous preparation of blood and incense means instant death. The space between the holy God and the sinful people is guarded by thick fabric and rigorous ritual.